Good afternoon, everybody. Today is Wednesday. It is June 29th, and today we have some important topics to discuss, but I think leading the news cycle today is that Justice Breyer is retiring. That will be effective tomorrow at noon. And whether or not, I would like to ponder, is that related to not having a repeat of Ginsburg? So joining me to discuss this, the trigger laws that have now been thwarted by lower courts because of Roe v. Wade and a few other things, antitrust bills, is the great Ron Placone. Welcome to the show, Ron.
What's up, Tina? Good to see you. Good to see everybody. Full disclaimer, if at any point I seem a little loopy or out of it, I am still battling COVID. I'm still getting through it. So I am not in Iceland right now. I'm supposed to be doing shows in Iceland. Unfortunately, I had to reschedule those. So I'll be rescheduling them for 2023. But I am getting better. I am feeling better, and thank you to everybody for their well wishes and stuff like that. And if I seem a little out of it at any point, please understand that's why. But there's a lot to talk about.
There's a lot to talk about. So, right off the top, Justice Breyer announced this morning that he is going to be retiring from the court, paving the way for Ketanji Brown to take position. She's been confirmed. She's ready to go. So I wanted to ask you what your thoughts are on this. There is a group called Demand Justice that has been pretty much parading a billboard in front of SCOTUS that just basically says retire Breyer. Obviously, their concern is if they get into another situation where there's a repeat of losing a justice during the next presidential tenure, which could possibly not be Biden. It could be, somebody like Trump, worse than Trump, what have you. They would rather have somebody in position now that they know can take that bench, and it's not going to be a battle, and you're not going to have to worry about either, the Democrats not fighting hard enough to get that seat in place, because that's often the case, et cetera. So what are your thoughts, Ron? I mean, obviously we can't get into Justice Breyer's head, but do you think that's floating around there possibly?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to think that that's some of his thinking, that, okay, I want to step down so someone, relatively reasonable could replace me, and I could be sure of that. And by the way, I know that everybody, especially people who watch this show, realize this, but when we say progressive, that's really in a lot of quotes when it comes to the Supreme Court. It's not like there's any actual progressives on the Supreme Court. It just basically it just means, are they a hardcore religious zealot, or are they at least somewhat reasonable and interested in doing their job? Saying that the Supreme Court kind of upholds the law of the land, that's like looking at the Chuck E. Cheese animatronic band and saying they're a real rock and roll outfit. They have nothing to do with the law. They're just a bunch of religious zealots who are just trying to bend the law to fit their dogma, and then they're used as a political football against voters. It is absolutely criminal. It should not exist. And I think we need to normalize just not giving any credence to this. It is a scam, and we need to call it out as such. I know that's a very long answer to your question.
No, it's not.
It kind of goes into other territory.
Ron, I'd like to actually talk about your answer, because I think your answer represents a feeling that is very strong about in the American population right now. In order for a lot of these government institutions to function properly, such as SCOTUS, I would include law enforcement with this, there needs to be a certain level of public trust in the institution. I think the public trust in this institution is incredibly eroded right now. It's not, it's not one.
Well, I don't know why you would feel that way, especially when it comes to law enforcement. I mean, you've had nothing but great experiences, right?
Right. Not to digress, but yeah, I know 100%. So point being is that if people don't trust public institutions, they don't feel that they have to pay attention to the laws that are put in place by these institutions. I think right now we're in a very extreme place, right? So these three new court appointees that came under Trump are very much Christian fascists. They are not hiding their biases at all. And I think this is a shift change. In the past, you would at least have judges that felt the pressure to at least consider looking to be non-biased. It's imperative when you're handing down laws that affect everybody that it's even-handed, that you're not cherry picking out one group over another. And that's obviously changed. And you can see that in the recent decisions that are being made. And I don't think Breyer has held back his tongue against what's going on. he doesn't like what he's seeing. So there's a part of me that thinks like maybe he just, is like, I'm throwing in the towel. This is enough. I don't know what I can do to stop these changes. But you can't have
it could be he looks around and he's like, look at all my asshole coworkers. I am done. Would you want to hang out with these people? I don't. I'm out of here.
So everybody,
I blame the guy.
This is why I always love having Ron on the show, because I tend to be very serious in the weeds, and he always pulls me back with his jokes and makes me laugh. So I'm thankful for that. So no, I think it's a precarious position. We can't obviously get into his head, but I do think that some of these things are part of the conversation. A lot of people still resent Ginsburg for not retiring when she did, because they felt like she had retired earlier. That place would not have gone to such an extremist. And I don't think it's controversial at this point to say that these positions that are coming out are very much extremists. We're talking now about overturning law. These are settled laws that we've had, 40 years. And it's not just Roe v. Wade. It's Miranda. It's Bivens.
Yeah.
It seems to me like everyone.
No one talked about that, by the way. No one talked about it. They just decided, the cops. That's why. It's so funny. When they announced the Miranda thing, I tweeted, I just said, so basically the Supreme Court wants to make sure you're in the dark about what rights you do have, and then count on them to interpret these rights for you. Count on us to interpret it for you. By the way, we really don't want you to know what's in anything. We really don't even want you to know what your rights are. We're not even going to, they don't even have to read them to you anymore when you get arrested. And but count on us. You can trust us. And a lot of people didn't even know what I was referring to when I tweeted that. Like, a lot of people were like, what's that have to do with abortion? And I'm just like, no. I'm talking about another fascist ruling. There's multiple ones to choose from.
I know. There's so many bad rulings that have come out. In fact, I tweeted out, that SCOTUS is trying really hard to turn the country into a Christian fascist police state in one term, because it's absolutely
They're succeeding.
They are succeeding. It's absolutely shocking to me that this is happening. And again, this is what's eroding public trust in the institution. At some point, and I've been seeing it on the skirmish line over the weekend, people don't see the court as legitimate. They're saying it out loud. They don't think law enforcement coming at them for protesting these decisions is legitimate either. So they're much more emboldened. So I think there's going to be an increase in civil unrest against this, and it's not abating. I mean, these guys are serving, I think part of the problem too is they're serving lifetime appointments, which I don't think should be the case.
They're unelected.
They're
unelected, serving lifetime appointments. I mean, yeah, and I'm not like, I mean, look, I'm not saying that we should live in a society without any law and order, but I am saying, like, we do have to call out these institutions for the scams that they are. They are scams. And law enforcement.
Explain why you think SCOTUS is a scam, and if you were going to get rid of SCOTUS, what would you replace that with? What would that look like?
I would just call all the shots. I would replace it with me, and the way to my heart is through my stomach. So if you make a mean cannoli, you're going to get any law you want. You'll probably get it. You just make me those cannoli, make me a good pizza, and make me a good pasta dish, and you'll probably get whatever you want. I know that's wrong, but at least I'm being honest. No, I would replace it with, first of all, people who are actually interested in law, people who are actual law professionals. These extremist zealots who just want to bend the law to their dogma. Again, they're not real. I mean, yeah, they have pieces of paper from institutions, sure, but they sure as hell aren't interested in the law. They've demonstrated that big time. So I would replace them with elected people who are actually interested in the law. And the whole idea of the Supreme Court being a political football. Do you know how bizarre that is to other places, by the way? It's freaking bizarre. It's bizarre that it's like, wait a second, the court is some political football to you people, and then you're worried about it. It's completely, but we've accepted it as normal because it's just something we've always had. Yeah. And I agree with you that it has gotten more extreme, but I think that as far as them being just objective to the law, I don't know when that's ever been the case. Certainly not in my lifetime. Certainly not in yours. It has gotten more extreme, but it's always been there, and it's bogus.
I would say there was a big change in the early 70s, starting with the Powell Memo. For folks that aren't familiar, Google that.
Yeah.
I could spend an hour talking about that, and I don't want to digress.
So it's been a minute.
It's been
it's been a hot minute, Tina.
We didn't get here overnight, but we've definitely been headed in this direction. I wanted to talk about, before we get into the trigger laws, I wanted to talk about just the basic concept of due process and why all of a sudden this matters so much, right? So due process is that 14th Amendment thing that gives you constitutional rights that aren't specifically named in the Constitution, right? So a lot of these new justices, Federal Society type, with Federal Society type backgrounds, think that due process isn't correct, that is activist judicial actions. I think that's ridiculous. Obviously, you can't expect to have, for hundreds of years going forward, everything that should be given as a right to you named in that document. That would be impossible. Abortion didn't even exist when the Constitution was written, amongst other things, right? So this is a barrier that's just never going to be made. Now, Thomas Clarence obviously has come straight out and said that he's against, we should go back and look at every single one of these due process cases that have been argued and decide whether or not they should go forward. That is an incredibly extreme position. Even Roberts doesn't agree with that, and he's come out and said that. I don't know if people have been paying attention to this. During the Roe v. Wade conversation, the other three justices actually said, no, this is just about abortion. Breyer, on the other hand, and the other two liberals are saying, no, we don't believe you. We think you're just getting started and you're not done yet. So there's definitely internally conversations happening, right? And I think you're right. It's like become this politicized political football, and you cannot exist as a political football if you are supposed to be in charge or responsible for the law of the land. It's just impossible. Yeah. So, I don't know if you have thoughts on due process or whether that is something we should all be paying attention to, but I think it's a very important part of the conversation.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and we've kind of, all of these rulings as of recent, they are connected, and they are just bringing us into a straight up authoritarian theocracy. There is no sugarcoating that. There is no denying that that's what's happening. And then they're trying to downplay all of these things. They're trying to kind of sugarcoat the whole. Was it in Texas with the high school football coach? Was that?
Yeah.
Okay. I forgot which state it was in. I just guessed. I
think it is. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think
it's Texas. I honestly just guessed that, though. I could be wrong.
Florida.
Yeah, I mean, but I mean, you look at that. They're trying to make it out like there was just this guy and he just, had a moment of silence to himself. Right. It was like, okay, I just want to give. And they were like, what are you doing? Do you have religious beliefs? And that's not what happened. The guy was holding these prayers in the middle of everything. The players, of course, are going to feel pressure to participate because you're their freaking coach. For a lot of them, you're the biggest authority figure in their freaking life. And for a lot of them, you have a lot of control over their future. Because if you decide that they're not getting the playing time, they might not get to go to the college they want to go to play football. Right. They know the power you have over them. And you are a huge influence on them. So, of course, they're going to feel pressure into joining. And the Supreme Court just said, well, that's okay. We're fine with that. That's going to lead to more prayer in public schools. That's what's happening. That's what's going to happen. And I guess they're really just they're making it easier for the solution to school shootings, because the solution to school shootings, of course, is thoughts and prayers. So they're just going to make that second part even easier.
I shouldn't laugh at that, but you're.
Well, that's what they're doing. I mean, that's just what they're doing.
You're not wrong. It's very painful. So, a part and parcel to this conversation, of course, is the CNP, which is, they've been on the sidelines along with the Federalist Society for many years now, trying to fund justices and politicians that hold these, Christian fascist values. Mm-hmm. So this isn't something that's hidden. What bothers me, though, is they don't seem to see the problem. In their mind, they have the moral authority.
That's what they want.
Right. But I guess what baffles me.
It's weird that these Christian fascists are upset about these Christian fascist things that they're doing. Why aren't they upset about that? Because that's what they want.
Because they are eroding So this country was founded, and whether people like it or not, this is the case. It was founded on religious tolerance. Tolerance requires that you don't cherry pick or preface one religion over another. It means that everybody's allowed to hold whatever political beliefs that they want and not be punished for that. The minute
they can't impose it on others.
But they're doing that now. That's
I know.
the ultimate irony, right? Like, I mean,
it's very cruel irony, yes, and that's why I'm saying it's not a legitimate institution.
All right, now we've come full
circle. we become full circle. Yes, they're doing this on purpose because that's what they want.
Right. All right. So let's shift gears for a second, because now we're getting into the second phase of overturning Roe v. Wade, and that's the state's courts, right? So now we're going to see battles that are going to be breaking out across the state in areas where there's not protections for abortion. For example, in the state of California, this law has overturning Roe v. Wade will have no effect on us because it's part of our state law here. But this is not the case, as we know, for many of the other states. So there's something called
hold up. In California, we might have something on the ballot solidifying a law as well. We might be having a ballot measure in November, which, hey, California, pay attention, because, you know, we always say these things like we're leading the way. And yes, we are better off than a lot of states, but you know what? There's still a lot that we have to lose too. So pay attention. And if the ballot measure gets there, make sure you frickin' show up. Make sure you frickin' show up for that ballot measure, because, you know, we need to have all hands on deck for this, no matter where you live.
We do. So trigger laws, 13 states have them on the books. These were laws that were put in place that were designed to take effect the minute SCOTUS overturned Roe v. Wade. So we're seeing that happen now. The dominoes are falling. There's a couple of states in which they have been blocked by a lower court, but not for a very long period of time, 14 days average, I'd say. Oklahoma Supreme Court said no to that. Their laws are in place. That was a vote of 8-1. 8 in favor of saying Roe v. Wade is the law of the land. Abortion is now illegal in Oklahoma. Texas judge blocked their bill. So this is wild. This is a bill that's been on the books since 1925. 1925. I mean, that's crazy, right? Mm-hmm. So according to the abortion rights activists, it was repealed. The 1925 law is what they're saying was repealed. And it's also conflicted by more current laws that have come into play in the state of Texas. So the argument they're using here to get the injunction, I believe it's an injunction at least, is that we don't know what we're doing. It's very confusing right now. The state court is going to need to be very clear about where we're at as a state before we can tell abortion providers what their rights and choices are. So that's happening. There's some similar situation happening in Louisiana. Also in Utah, of all places. So I think we're going to see this ramp up. Now, you're going to see various lawsuits come out where activists are going to try to challenge and get into place, anti-abortion laws, I guess, for lack of a better word. So this is going to become quite a large battleground. There are two areas that I'm quite concerned on. The first would be that included in a lot of these languages at the state level bills, right, there's verbiage against drugs used in the cases of miscarriage, because they can also induce an abortion. So some of these medications are also used for seizures, for example, and other things. It's not just for this. Yeah. But now, because of these laws, there are pharmacies that are like, I'm not sure we can legally fulfill these prescriptions, which is going to cause a whole host of health issues for other individuals that have nothing to do with this. It infuriates me so much. It infuriates me so much because now, this is bleeding out into so many other things. Like we could argue this is the law of unintended consequences, but I'm not sure if that's the case. And
that you would like to think that that's the case. But I agree with you. I don't think it is either. I think that these people who have been pushing for this, these religious extremists, whatever you want to call them, that have been pushing for this for years and years and years and finally got what they wanted, they don't give a hoot about women's health or anyone's health, really, but especially not women's health. They don't give a hoot that, because of this now, rape victims who go in for medical care are going to get treated differently now because of this they might not be able to get something like Plan B rape victims.
Which is insane.
So
You're not wrong on that.
beyond, I mean, it's evil.
It
I
is.
mean, you can't really call this anything other than what it is. It is pure evil. And, we've been having these conversations for our entire freaking adult lives.
Yeah.
And, you're trying to have rational discussions with these people who have the rationale of a 7-year-old.
Yeah, no, very
just
confused.
It's like, you don't like abortion? Okay, well then don't get
don't
one.
have one. That's
And
it.
you know what? If you want to see less of it in society, how about you dedicate yourself to trying to create a world where it's less necessary? How about you dedicate yourself to trying to have more prenatal care available, to have living wages for people, to have more support out there, to have universal health care? Why don't you dedicate yourself to something like that? Because those are the things that would make less abortion happen, not imposing your religious extremism on everyone that makes the entire world less healthy.
Yeah. No, you're not wrong. And there's instances where a woman could be having a miscarriage, and if she doesn't entirely abort the fetus and it remains inside of her, she could get septic. It's a very dangerous situation. So, again, these drugs are used for those cases. What is she supposed to do now? Go before a panel of old men and beg for her life just to get the care she needs? I mean, there's no moral equivalency here. Like, you talk to the pro-life people, and they try to make these arguments. Well, life it's at conception, and it's holy, and it needs to be protected. But nothing they're saying is grounded in science. It's infuriating to me that they care more about that little blob of cells that isn't a full human being yet than they do a living, breathing woman who is in desperate need of care in order to live. If she doesn't get that out of her, and she gets septic, she could die. What about her life?
Yeah.
I mean, people they have zero tolerance or zero way to see gray areas or nuance. And so, which brings me to what you said earlier, because this is what I believe. Now I'm giving you my 100% personal opinion here. If you don't want to have an abortion, don't have one. It is that simple.
Yeah.
You don't have the right to tell everybody else out there that they don't have that right. It's fucked up. There you go. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I mean, it really is, and I'm sorry. I see some folks in the chat where it's like, oh, you're being so insensitive to the opposition. We've been having these conversations for decades now, and I'm sorry, I have no tolerance. You are free to believe whatever you want to believe.
That's right.
Any religious beliefs you have, that is your business. That is your choice. Good for you. You don't have the right to impose it on other people. You don't have the right to frickin' do that. I'm sorry.
I agree.
I mean, so stop doing it. And, I'm not going to just sit by and be like, well, let's have rational discussions with the theocratic fascists who are trying to impose theocratic fascism on us. No, I'm going to say that can't be fucking tolerated. That can't be.
I don't think you can have a rational conversation with some of these extreme viewpoints, because
no, you can't.
Their viewpoint, it's because they're so committed to their viewpoint as being the moral one. There's no leeway there. And it's very problematic. And the fact that we have individuals sitting on our court that think this is just really frightful to me at this point, because I think we're just in a very dark place. I don't think they're done doing what they're doing. I think when, Clarence Thomas says all the due process things and the other three go, nah, we're not going that far, I don't believe them. I mean, they all said that they thought Roe v. Wade was settled law during their confirmation hearings. Well, Here we are. Yep. Did they actually believe that? I mean, they might have been a little loosey-goosey with the way they termed it to give themselves a way out, but they did say it.
Oh, yeah, totally they did. Well,
and they knew that they had to say it in order to get confirmed. I think that's the reality, which brings me to my next question. Impeachment. We have built in a method of impeaching SCOTUS justices. Why do you think it is the Democratic Party doesn't seem to be willing to do this?
Same reason they're not willing to expand the court. Same reason they're not willing to, same reason they did absolutely nothing to even try to stall any of Trump's picks. Same reason RBG didn't retire. Same reason Barack Obama didn't go to the mat for the pick that was rightfully his. They don't care that much. They like having their political football to pressure people into votes, and they don't really care that much because they are owned by Wall Street, same as the Republicans are, and they don't really care if we have like a theocratic fascist court just calling the law of the land. They don't care. And these are, again, 9 unelected people, most of them religious extremists, completely out of touch with regular people. I mean, these are the type of people, if you saw them at a bar in 10 minutes, you would want to leave because of the batshit crazy things that would come out of their mouth.
Yeah.
Yet they get to make our laws. They get to, quote, uphold the law. I mean, it's a parody of a parody of a parody at this point. And there's no reason to respect any of these institutions.
No,
None.
I think, I think the other part of the problem is we're now looking down the barrel of minority opinion rule, meaning that it's a very small group of individuals that are now getting the say of the land because of the positions that this is why I go back to the Powell Memo, right? That was a blueprint to get to the place we are today that has been very effective. The CNP had a meeting down here in Laguna Niguel, or Dana Point, actually, a couple months back. They're a very secretive Christian fascist organization that has been around for a long time. Pence has spoken at the organization. Trump is affiliated. So you could go down the list of all the extreme Republicans that have been affiliated with this. And Sean Foyt, who is now like he's one of these evangelical guys that goes around, he sings and he does protests, what have you. But he was one of the ones responsible for going after Disney after the Don't Say Gay bill. And, a lot of the dialogue that comes out of this group is that everybody that's in this group over here, whether it's supporting gay rights or being gay, whatever, they're all pedophiles, right? You'll hear them say this. And then Disney, of course, was supporting pedophilia by coming out against Don't Say Gay bill. And then they go to this place, well, everybody that's a Democrat that supports this is a groomer. You just go down this rabbit hole of just nonsense, like extreme positions that aren't really grounded in reality. But they believe them. And it's dangerous because they believe them. They act on them.
Yeah, I mean, of course, it's absolutely dangerous. I mean, yeah, and by the way, if you actually read the Don't Say Gay bill, which I did, I'd imagine you did.
Yeah,
it's very obvious to see that bill for what it is. What that bill was all about is to just make life even harder for LGBTQ youth. That's what it was all about. It was to make it even harder for them to get any resources available to them. It was to make it even harder for them to have any type of confidentiality with a counselor, to maybe get the help or resources that they need. That's all that bill was about. It's about making their lives even more difficult than it already is. And look, I'm an elder millennial. I would like to see all of the LGBTQ youth to have it a little easier than LGBTQ people from my generation had it. I would like to see it become better for them, where it's easier for them to be who they are and to figure out who they are. But that bill is all about going backwards. That's what that bill is for. It is a hateful bill.
DeSantis in a second, because I think that's related. So I wanted to read. We have a couple super chats here. One of them just disappeared. I hope there's a way for me to pull it up. But humorous. That's a damn cop-out problem with this country in the world. Nobody wants to upset the boat, but everybody wants to. He's got a B with some stars. I think he says is bitch. Everybody wants
to bitch. Yeah, you want to complain or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, what's the cop-out? What's the
I'm
cop-out?
not sure. Maybe he can let us know in the chat. Hey, Colin, the rest of the super chats disappeared. Darn it.
They're in the private chat here in StreamYard,
which I can't see. Can you read them?
Oh, you can't see? Okay.
I can. Here, I can go to it.
Oh, okay. Ron, you read them.
All right. So, Big Dumb Animal. What's up, Big Dumb Animal? Gonna have to watch later, but love both Tina and Ron and wanted to show support for them and the coup in general. Thank you, Big Dumb Animal. That's awesome. Thank you very, very much. Tony Dallas. Personally, I'm pro-life, says Tony, but not advocating for economic changes for families to thrive is a contradiction. They are not pro-life. They are pro-birth. Hey, Tony, I disagree with you on being pro-life, but I do agree with that statement. Yeah. And, honestly, Tony, I think that's a discussion you should have with other pro-life people. Again, when it comes to being pro-life, you and I disagree on that. But you should have that conversation with other pro-life people. Just saying, look, if it's really about abortion, let's try to create a society where people feel like they have more options than that, where people really feel like they have a support system. So maybe they'll be a little less likely to make that decision.
Right.
Just a suggestion. So thank you for your thoughts, and I appreciate it. And then, the other one is the one we already read, humorous.
Okay. If Humorous wants to let us know what the cop-out is, because I'm not sure where he dropped that in, so I don't know specifically.
It's hard in real time.
I know, right? All right.
Any number of things could be a cop-out.
I know, right? Please specify which one. I mean, there's so many. So DeSantis, we were talking about Don't Say Gay bill. I want to bring up DeSantis today because, Joe Rogan was, trending on Twitter again because he basically said that he thinks DeSantis would make a good president. I find that to catch my hair on fire. He would be a terrible president. But why I'm bothered by this the most is Joe Rogan's supposed to be a guy that is all about not having censorship, right? And how do you square that with supporting DeSantis? Here's a guy, I mean, not just the Don't Say Gay bill, right? This is a guy that banned 54 math books. You banned 54 math books because why?
Didn't he do something against? It's foggy in my memory, but didn't he also have some kind of ban on some kind of protesting too recently, Ron DeSantis?
Yeah, he did. No, you're not wrong. I mean, we could go down the list. Point being is DeSantis is only anti-censorship if he's down with the program. If it's something that he doesn't like, bring out all the guns. So, I mean, the guy, ginormous hypocrite. But, part of why he banned the 54 math books was because he was claiming that they had CRT references in them. These were books that are K through 12. I guarantee there's no such thing.
They're math books. Like, what does that have to do? I mean, I just don't even, I can't even, I mean, I saw that article and I was just trying to wrap my head around I don't even see the connection there. Like that's just, it's a math book. I mean, that has, Kurt Vonnegut, rest in power. But Kurt Vonnegut had a theory on George W. Bush that the real reason George W. Bush wanted to invade Iraq and wanted to go after the Middle East, the real reason he wanted to do it, or one of the reasons at least, was because they had a large role in the advancements of algebra and different mathematics like that. And George W. Bush was mad about that because it was just so hard for him in school. So he was kind of like, well, we're going to go to war over this. So I don't know if there's some of that energy going on. Like, I don't know if like maybe Ron DeSantis is like, there's been brown people in charge of some of this math stuff. We're not teaching it anymore. You kids go pray with your football coach and shut up.
So I brought, if Colin can bring it up on screen, I actually pulled an article on this that Truth Out published by Chris Walker that I thought was a pretty good rundown of the DeSantis math situation. Do you find it, Colin?
Yeah, I got it here.
Math situation.
This is the math, because I don't know what the math scandal, I don't know what you want to call this. So the Florida Department of Education announced last week that it was rejecting the use of dozens of mathematics textbooks in K through 12 public schools throughout the state, ostensibly because they contain content that discussed critical race theory. That's the thing that kind of blows my mind. Critical race theory is a graduate level thing. This is not something you would even study as an undergrad in college. It's graduate level. I didn't come across it till I was in grad school, and since I did my thesis paper on the history of scientific racism, it was something that I looked at that point. And so they've turned it into this sort of boogeyman of leftward progressive thinking, I guess, because now it's all you see over and over again, right?
Yeah.
When asked to provide examples, however, neither the department nor Governor DeSantis would do so, in spite of claiming that the process has been transparent. So here again, you have some guy saying, no, I'm not going to show you. I'm just going to tell you that's the case, and you accept it. Also problematic. In a statement landing the decision to reject the titles, DeSantis said that he was grateful that the department conducted such a thorough vetting of these textbooks to ensure that they comply with the law of censorship, let's be clear. The department stated that it had engaged in a transparent instructional materials review process that ensures the public has the opportunity to review and comment on submitted textbooks. Anyway, it goes on to talk about the 54 mathematics books that were rejected. 41% of the 132 titles that were submitted for review. The department did not include the names of the books. But interestingly enough,
Doesn't this stuff make you so
infuriating.
angry? When you see, especially, and I'm not going to sit here and say that other places in the world don't have their problems. Of course they do. Everywhere does. But when you see news throughout the world where you're just like, they've come up with a new high-speed rail that goes from London to Paris overnight.
Right.
Isn't that great? And it's low cost. And then it's like, what are you up to, United States? And we're just like, we're mad at math books. And you're just like, why? Why are we so freaking nuts here?
I don't know. We've become nuts. So we have a couple more super chats. 8 of Wands. Thanks for your good work. Please use the term anti-abortion rather than pro-life. Okay, that's fair.
That's fair. I'd like to say anti-choice.
I've been trying to use
anti-choice.
I've been using abortion rights activists to describe folks that are out there on the streets for doing this because that's what they're advocating for. Thank you for your super chat, 100%. Oh, yes, Humorous is telling us what it is. Okay, you all need to start supporting this channel. These people actually go out and tell you really what's going on in America. This is not corporate media crap. This crap is actually really happening right under your nose. Thank you, Humorous. Thank you for your generosity. $20. We appreciate it. And yeah, we are out there in the street and it does cost money. In fact, I need to buy some new protective gear after last weekend, I think. All right. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about with DeSantis is that he has this, I don't know, flaming idiot. Am I allowed to say this? His press secretary, I guess she is, Christina Pushaw, puts out the most crazy tweets. I don't know if anybody has paid attention to her on Twitter, but she's always out there making just really incendiary, extreme viewpoints about DeSantis and the things that he's doing there. And I think it matters because she's part and parcel, obviously, to his administration. But if Joe Rogan was actually paying attention to the things that she was saying, the things that DeSantis was doing, I think you could see quite clearly that if he is really a first speech or a first right amendment absolutist, anti-censorship, that this is not your guy. I mean, banning math books. These are, we're now in the area of government, right? This is government doing the banning. So this is definitely exceeding any sort of censorship issue, in my opinion. I mean, what do you think, Ron? What is your thoughts on Joe Rogan saying this?
Well, I think that, I don't really care what Joe Rogan thinks all that much, but I do think there is a huge trend where people are downplaying Ron DeSantis and the danger that he is. And I think a lot of people are being fooled by him. And you can't just point your finger at Joe Rogan. I mean, if you're going to point your finger at people kind of in the public spotlight with big platforms, point your finger at Joe Rogan, sure. But you know who else you can point your finger at, especially as of recent? Bill Maher. Bill Maher, I mean, Crystal Ball, when she was on his show, she did have a fantastic appearance. And she also brought up how dangerous freaking Ron DeSantis is. Yeah. Bill Maher downplayed it. Bill Maher, he won't be tweeting on the toilet at Bette Midler. Which, first of all, Trump tweets jokes, Bill. Very fresh stuff. Very fresh stuff. That's really timely and topical. Look, Trump's not in office anymore, okay, pal? Yeah, I know, right? But look, I mean, Ron DeSantis, I think is maybe the most dangerous person in government right now. I mean, he's up there. It's like you look at people like him, you look at people like Mitch McConnell, you look at people like Adam Schiff. It's not just Republicans, it's Democrats too. You look at people like Pete Buttigieg. There are some really freaking dangerous people. And Ron DeSantis is at the top of the list. Yeah. I mean, those are some of the most dangerous people that, giving them the true levers of power. And DeSantis would be basically politically what Trump was, but just wasn't able to accomplish because he was Trump and he was such a goofball. Yeah, DeSantis would be able to frickin' do that. And there's a good chance Ron DeSantis is going to be the next president.
There is a good chance that he's definitely running. That's pretty clear. He was actually here in California doing some fundraisers even. So, yeah, I think DeSantis is running. I do think he's more effective than Trump would be. I do think it's really frightful that guys like Bill Maher and Joe Rogan are normalizing the guy like he's not a big deal. He has some very extreme viewpoints that are very concerning. All right. Tony Dallas, the CRT and math books is bullcrap. He is shifting money from, this is true, from other companies to companies owned by the Carlyle Group. He has buddies who are invested. I did not know this about the Carlyle Group. Thank you, Tony, for that. Okay. It is bullcrap. I agree with you. So interesting. I did not know that. I'll have to look into that. So, yeah, that's where we're at with that. Anything else on DeSantis before we move into your favorite topic?
Geesh, I don't. I think we kind of covered it. I mean, yeah, the guy's awful.
That's it. The guy's awful. So there's another thing going on, folks, that has not had a lot of attention thrown at it, and I wanted to have Ron on today specifically to talk about this because I think is important. There are 2 antitrust bills that are now winding their way through Congress, and it is imperative that they get brought to the floor and voted on this term. If that doesn't happen, I don't think we will see them come back again. The Department of Justice has not been enforcing antitrust laws now for decades. It is absolutely 100% contributing to the income inequality in the country. It is why we have monopolies that get away with all kinds of nonsense that not only harm you as a consumer, but also harm your pocketbook, workers' rights, the whole 9 yards. So, Ron, let's talk a little bit about that. I know you had a video that you wanted us to play. Let's, Colin, let's play that first, and then we'll get into the conversation about this.
What's up, everybody? Ron Placone here, because it all goes down easier coming from a dude on the beach. Antitrust summer right now, Fight for the Future is driving video billboards around Chuck Schumer's residences in New York and D.C. Of course, he has more than one, to make him keep his promise on bringing the antitrust bills to the floor. We got to make these people keep their promises. We see what happens when they don't keep their promises. Like, I don't know, if they were going to codify something into law years ago and just never got around to it. AntitrustSummer.com. Now, the future of the internet depends on it, and we need any and every win we can get.
Yes, this is true.
So, yeah, I mean, so that's kind of where we're at. Chuck Schumer promised to vote last week. He promised to vote the week of June 20th. That week is come and gone. We haven't seen a vote scheduled yet. And here's an interesting breaking as of today update. So the New York Post covered the action taken by Fight for the Future, where the video billboards are going around Chuck Schumer's residences. And a spokesperson for Chuck Schumer said that he supports these bills and wants to work with Amy Klobuchar. Amy Klobuchar co-authored one of the bills, wants to work with Amy Klobuchar to get them passed. Now, these bills have a lot of bipartisan support because, there is an antitrust history in this country. I mean, they broke up AT&T during Reagan, for crying out loud. It does happen in the United States. And breaking up AT&T, by the way, was freaking huge. It led to cheaper long-distance calling. It led to products like the answering machine, which some of the younger folks watching might need to Google that later. Like, answering machine. What is it? It's like the voicemail on yourself, but it was a thing. And it also led to the modem, which helped bring about the worldwide internet as we know it. So, when you break up these big monopolies, it really lets society realize its potential. And right now, we have these near monopolistic practices going on the internet with companies like Google and Amazon and Apple. And, I'll talk briefly about what these bills do. I know the Status Coup has covered it before, so I won't rehash every single thing. But basically, there's 2 antitrust bills, OMA and a COA. COA has to do with prioritizing one's products and services over others. An example of this, when you search for something on Google, you might be kept on Google for the first page of results, where Google prioritizes their own results.
Even at this point,
sometimes the second. And what they do
anymore,
and what they do is they data scrape from other websites and repackage it as their own. Well, why is this harmful? One, because it's not just giving you general search results on the web, like what you're looking for. And 2, because it takes traffic away from other websites, which is basically how they sustain themselves. So it's basically making it completely anti-competitive for anything else on the web. Amazon, when you search for something, say you're searching for a popular bag on Amazon. This was the example used in the John Oliver clip. So Amazon will harvest your data, So they'll know that a certain bag's popular. So what do? They make a generic version of it. And then when you're searching for that bag online, you're going to get pages and pages of Amazon's generic product instead of the actual product that you were looking for. That's what they do. And it just stifles all of their third-party sellers. It stifles any independent vendors. And guess what? They got the marketplace. Most of online commerce happens on Google and Amazon.
Right.
So that's what ACOA does. OMA has to do with apps. Now, when you are in an app store, you're at the mercy of Amazon and Google. So you are subject to their payment processors. You're subject to their fees, and they have these exorbitant fees. And you have to play by their rules, or you don't even get a shot. So these bills break that up. These bills end those monopolistic practices. And this is huge in terms of opening up the internet to what it used to be and what it's supposed to be. And we got to ask ourselves, what do we want for the future of the internet? Do we want it to be this kind of democratized super highway of information, which is what made it great in the first place? Or do we want it to continue to descend into this capitalistic, monopolistic hell?
Yeah.
I mean, so these are two very important bills. And I know there's so much going on right now, Tina, that it's hard to kind of wrap one's head around this. But it's like, again, we have to wield power where we can. We have to hold them to account where we can. This is huge antitrust legislation. We gotta make them keep their promise, because we see what happens when they don't. And this bleeds into a lot of what we're talking about with other issues. Look, right now, these big tech companies, they're censoring information on abortion pills and abortion rights. They're doing that right now because they are big tech and they are at the whims with their lobbyists. So these bills that help break up the big tech, even though, full disclaimer, these bills don't address censorship directly, but it's all connected, because the reason these big tech companies are able to behave the way they are is because of how much freaking power they have.
That's right.
So when you start breaking them up.
Yeah. Nobody's holding them account. So, another thing that Amazon does that I think is another prime example is they pay attention to what's selling on the website by their vendors, right? And if they see something that's selling really well from a vendor, they'll make a copy of that and start selling it as one of their Amazon Basics branded thing. And then that vendor is screwed. They're out of business, right? Because Amazon's going to be able to do it cheaper. So there's so many ways that they self-preference. I call this self-preferencing, right?
Yes.
There's many ways in which they self-preference themselves that the monopolies are absolutely out of control. You and I've had this conversation. I don't use Google Chrome for this reason. I absolutely refuse to use their search engine because I just think it's adding to the problem. But you'll notice that they've so dominated search now that even if you're using Mozilla Firefox, for example, you're still served YouTube videos back because that's why they bought YouTube, right? Because when they have that video section, before you would have other things, there's like Daily Motion, whatever the smaller players are, but you don't even see those videos at all anymore. If it's not on YouTube, you're not going to see it, which is absolutely outrageous when you think about it, because then you turn around and you have to deal with YouTube, and everybody knows about the problems that we've had with them.
Oh yeah. I mean, YouTube has gotten so progressively worse over the past, I guess it's been a good Google 5 years.
I mean, really, since Google bought them.
Yeah, well, and it all has to do with consolidation and money. I mean, why is YouTube going after independent news? Well, largely because they want people to subscribe to YouTube TV, who are some of their partners on YouTube TV. Corporate media. Status Coup's not a partner. You're not a partner. I'm not a partner. But CNN is, Fox News is, MSNBC is. So what are they going to do? Well, they're going to have the algorithm screw over independent news, so that they can sell more of that. I mean, it's all just following the consolidation and following the money. So that's why antitrust like this is so incredibly important. It affects us as content creators too, because we're really being held back right now from a post-YouTube future. What's going to happen after YouTube? Well, we don't know yet, but we might not get to find out if we don't have any freaking antitrust.
That's right. It kills. Here's the other thing. Monopolies kill innovation because they kill competition, right? So there is nobody competing against YouTube. We very much need somebody. I hope we don't get in trouble for saying this. We need competitors out there because it's the only way that we have some power given back to the content creators right now, right?
Yeah.
So it's unfortunate and ridiculous to me that content creators, who are what made YouTube what it is today, right? They would be nothing without content creators. They need our content, is just able to treat content creators so poorly. But that's where we are, right?
That's where we are. And we don't really have an alternative because, again, if you're not on YouTube, you're kind of screwed. You don't really have a choice.
Well, and so, you are on YouTube, you're kind of screwed because now they're messing with algorithms, right? Have you noticed that when you type something into the YouTube search, like even if you're really specific about what you're looking for, it serves up all of these partnered, verified part of their TV accounts that are talking about things unrelated to your search before you can, like, 5 pages in, find what you're looking for. This is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and it's all by design. And that's why antitrust legislation like this is so incredibly important and will just have lasting effects for the better. So, you know, again, I implore everyone, please, it takes about 40 seconds to sign this thing. Go to antitrustsummer.com because, kind of like you said, Tina, look, Congress, they're going to go on their summer recess, which, I mean, they've been working very hard. They've earned it. But they're going to go on their summer recess, and then they're going to come back, and they're all going to be in midterm mode. So if we don't act on this quick, we're going to lose the opportunity. And by the way, I mean, Chuck Schumer, he said, oh, yeah, I support these bills. I support these bills. Well, you're the majority leader, Chuck.
And bring it to the floor.
So what are you waiting for? Bring it to the floor. Why aren't you bringing it to the floor? Gee, maybe it's because he has a daughter who's a lobbyist for Amazon and another daughter who works for Meta, which is Facebook. This guy has a lot of conflicts of interest with big tech. We all know it. So he's saying, oh, yeah, I support these bills. It's like Chuck Schumer standing in front of a grill. He has burgers. He has utensils. He has charcoal. He has a lighter. No one else does. And he's just like, I'm all about grilling these burgers. Well, light the freaking charcoal. You're standing there. Light the freaking charcoal. Just do it. I'm for these bills. Then bring them to the floor. So, I mean, we gotta call these people. We gotta call these people out for it. We gotta call these elected officials out for it, and we gotta force them to support policy because guess what? The tech lobbyists, they got their ears. So if we
they 100% have their ears.
They got their ears. Yeah. If we sleep on it, it's not gonna happen. Right. So again.
Right, and I'm actually concerned about this because this wouldn't be the first time we've seen, you know, Democrats say that they're behind something, they fully support it, yada, 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 but then they refuse to bring the bills to the floor. If you refuse to bring the bill to the floor, you might as well not support it because you're killing the legislator. That's it. Yeah. If it doesn't get it doesn't get voted on.
And according to a couple reports from Reuters, the votes are there. The votes are there. There is enough bipartisan support, which usually bipartisan means they have a shitty idea and the other party's helping them sell it. But in this case, every now and again, there's some good policy out there. Right. This is good policy. And it has bipartisan support because people across the political spectrum agree that, hey, big tech has way too much freaking power and this ain't good. So, you know, we don't agree on all the solutions, obviously, but this antitrust legislation is a huge step in a better direction.
Excellent. I agree with you. Couple more super chats. Humorous. I can explain that because it's because of what the Bible says that they don't understand says that they don't understand because they don't read it. They listen to false prophets teaching about false gods. So obviously we're going back to the Roe v. Wade thing. And I think that's true. It reminds me of that Gandhi, that really famous Gandhi quote, I like your Christ, I dislike your Christians because your Christians are unlike your Christ, something like this. But
well, I mean, by the way, I mean, I tweeted this, especially with the whole prayer, the high school prayer guy. If you read the Bible, which I actually have because YOLO, but if you read the Bible, like Jesus was against public prayer. Like that's in there. He was against it. So, I mean, you know, and I'm, you know, full disclaimer, I'm a non-believer, but like, I mean, I don't even know if the guy existed or not, but he was against public prayer. If you read like what he actually said, the dude was against public prayer. A lot of evangelicals do not
what Jesus said. You can definitely see that they decide to cherry pick which parts they agree to. And humorous again, $50. Humorous, you are incredibly generous. I cannot thank you enough. Humorous says what I find humorous, by the way. What I find humorous is that the Bible says, I don't believe in the rise of the religion that these people believe in. It also said, don't believe in money, which all of them believe in. This is true.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ turned the tables, right?
The only time he ever got mad.
Right? Was that
he only
time.
ever got mad at like capitalists. That's why like people were like, well, Jesus, if anything, he was a socialist.
Yeah, I think that
he was against public prayer. He was against capitalism. He was against war. It's really interesting, some of his fan base, considering the stuff he actually said.
Yeah, agree. And then he follows that with, seems to me no Christian actually follows the Bible. And I think that's sort of what we're getting at. Okay, so there's one last thing that I want to talk about today that I think is incredibly important that I guarantee nobody has seen because the news cycle has been so batshit crazy, right? So many things coming at us. Can you pull up, Colin, the NATO article? We're going to talk about NATO, folks. This, I have no doubt, flew under the radar this morning. Does everybody know that NATO has now invited Sweden and Finland to join? You probably know that part, but that Turkey had been trying to stop that, and that barrier has now been removed up this morning. So it looks like that we are going to see this happen. So this is Reuters that was reporting it this morning. I'm going to just read along with this a little second here so people see this. All right. So Madrid, June 29th. NATO invited Sweden and Finland on Wednesday to join the military alliance in one of the biggest shifts in European security in decades after Russia's invasion of Ukraine pushed Helsinki and Stockholm to drop their traditional neutrality. This is a big deal. I mean, full disclosure, my family's from Sweden. NATO's 30 allies took the decision at their summit in Madrid and also agreed to formally treat Russia as the most significant and direct threat to the allies' security, according to the summit statement. Today, we have decided to invite Finland and Sweden to become members of NATO, NATO leaders said in their declaration after Turkey lifted a veto on Finland and Sweden joining. Ratification in allied parliaments is likely to be taken up this year, but once it is done, Finland and Sweden will be covered by NATO's Article 5 Collective Defense Clause, putting them under the United States protective nuclear umbrella. Ron, this is a big deal. I don't know if people realize this. A lot of the saber rattling, sometimes I can't say that, is in regards, coming from Russia, is in regards to the NATO expansion, right? When this whole thing started, years and years ago, there was a promise made to Russia that they would not expand NATO. That was not ever beholden to. I personally think this is a really large leap because traditionally Sweden and Finland too, but I'm speaking on Sweden now, is very much been a neutral country. And in the past, they have said, many of the politicians there have said that they didn't want to join NATO, but this is where we're at now. What are your thoughts on that?
It's just very concerning. I mean, because it's like, and this is something that especially you really don't see here in the West. We are fed this, kind of very, very one-sided pro-war narrative that Putin's just some crazy guy out there acting totally rogue, and that there's no more complexity to it, and he's just a bad man who needs to be stopped. Look, I'm certainly against what Putin is doing 110%, but sometimes you really have to take a step back and realize that life is not a comic book and the world is not a comic book. There are no good guys here. And the United States, the way we have been the world police, the way we have been provoking this thing for years and years and years, using Ukraine pretty much as just a pawn, those aren't the good guys here. I mean, there's no good guys here. They're all bad guys.
I agree with you. I don't think there's good guys here. Ukraine
the good guys are the people. The good guys are the people, like just the regular people in Ukraine who are trying to live their lives. The people in Russia, by the way, who are protesting what their government is doing, that they don't want you to see that in the US. They don't want you to see all of the anti-war protests in Russia. They don't want you to see that. Those are just the regular people. Those aren't the oligarchs in either place.
Right. I want to go back and talk about Ukraine being a pawn for a second, because I think that is a very valid viewpoint. Ukraine has been told by NATO, by the United States for years now to have take a robust stance against Russia, be bellicose with your words, all of these things. And where, that's putting Ukraine in a very dangerous position, because if Russia acts on that, which they now have, are they going to be able to defend themselves? Now, notice it's one thing to tell them to be bellicose and to stand up to Russia, but then to cut and run and not be there to support them, because honestly, I don't see how they're not willing to put any boots on the ground there, right, to defend them. So that is their war to fight against Russia. And Russia is a large enough power where that's, a dangerous situation for them. I don't think that was an honest approach to take. A more honest approach would have been that, but of course, NATO and the United States benefited from that, right?
Sure, and the United States war machine benefited from it.
Oh,
I mean,
100%,
we've sent how many billions and billions? Well, people at home continue to suffer,
They're
which
enriching themselves.
I don't see how there's any doubt in anyone's mind, if there ever was, that the United States is just the modern day empire. I mean, it's like, they're sending all these billions to just fund a war going on in the world that shouldn't be happening, that the United States was the biggest provoker of. And, meanwhile, people here continue to suffer more and more. That's empire by the book. Endless money for war that pads the pockets of a few, while people at home just suffer more and more and more.
Right. So the think tank industrial complex, the military industrial complex, is absolutely benefiting from this. Those that I agree with your take here. Those that are suffering are the people in both Ukraine and Russia that are against any sort of fascist state, that are against war. And those people do exist on both sides of the border. Those, in my opinion, I'm giving you my opinion now, those are the folks that we should be supporting if we as Americans want to fight empire. Because, these are very dark times for everybody involved. I'm concerned that Sweden, now taking a stance that they've never had previously, is coming from a place of fear that just doesn't exist. I'm also concerned, just to have a discussion about what's going on in Sweden internally, there is a rise of the right wing in Sweden. We would be dishonest if we didn't recognize that. Is it as extreme or large of a population as we have in the United States? No, it's not, but it does exist. And they are trying to influence their power more and more. And a lot of that extreme right-wing extremism is very much grounded in anti-immigration. Sweden was very generous with allowing individuals to come move to Sweden for a really long time, because they did have a very robust left. So there's definitely a policy shift that's happening in that country, and it worries me deeply. And I think that,
there's a little bit of that going on all throughout Europe. I can't speak to the extensiveness of it firsthand or anything like that.
Look at how well Le Pen did in the last French election. For folks that don't know who Marine Le Pen is, she is extremely right-wing. Her father was a Nazi. That's not hyperbola. He literally was. She's part of his party. She tried to rebrand the party, kind of soft up the edges. She changed some policy things, but she is absolutely a white nationalist. There's no way around that. I don't think she would have a problem, aligning that way. So the fact that she has done so well in this last French election, making it to the final stage and doing very well against Macron, should waken everybody up. This is very dangerous.
Well, in Italy, Mussolini's granddaughter is in government in Italy, and she's not. I know you're saying, well, she can't control who her grandfather is. Well, true, but no, she's a lot like the guy. She's a lot like the guy. I wouldn't be bringing this up if she was like some huge lefty who's like, my grandpa was an asshole. That'd be different. I'd be like, yeah, but no, she's a lot like her grandfather. That's the problem.
Yeah, so there is definitely the rise in fascism that we are seeing in the United States isn't isolated. It's a global problem.
No. We're really setting the bar. We're really, we knock it out of the park quite well, but no, it's not exclusive to us.
It's not exclusive to us. We are definitely knocking it out of the park. One of my things my cousins in Malmo always says to me is that whatever happens in the United States ends up in Sweden 5 years later. And, my thing is like, I hope to God that that's not the case, because you're not going to like what's coming at you. It's like, I can't even imagine that being the case, but things are definitely shifting. So yeah, I wanted to bring that to everybody's attention. I wasn't sure that a lot of people saw that this morning. Things that are important often get buried under so many devastating headlines. And I think everybody is starting to get news fatigue in this cycle, because it's literally one thing after another. Like, it's this just insane amount of stuff that's going on. Gosh, you know what? We have another super chat from Humorous. Humorous, you are so generous.
Humorous, you've been so cool today. I think
You
there's
are like holding our
them.
show for the week. Only a woman can make the choice of being pregnant and having a child. Said child is only a parasite to the human body, and it breathes until it breathes its first breath. Therefore, it can only be the woman's choice. No misogynistic man can make that choice.
Mom, is that you? Is that you? That's what, as soon as I was born, that's what my mom, she's like, oh, I'm so glad this parasite's out of me. I'm kidding.
Somehow I don't think your mom said that, Ron.
Of course she didn't. Well, I don't know what she said exactly. I'd imagine my mom curses a lot, so I'd imagine she was cursing. So, I mean, giving birth, that's not fun. That's not fun. And my nose was this big when I was born, actually. It was like the thing that came first. They were like, what is that? They were like, that's his nose. That's so weird. So my nose was always this big. So shout out to my mom. Shout out to my sweet mom for doing that.
No, shout out for your mom for making you such a great guy. I mean, we're happy to have the world is a better place with Ron Placone on the planet. That's all I'm saying. Ron, where can people go support antitrust stuff? I know there's a website. What's the scoop on that?
Yeah, go to antitrustsummer.com. Please sign up. It literally takes about 40 seconds. Everything goes directly to your elected officials. You can even you can also tweet Chuck Schumer directly to make him pay attention to the billboards outside of his houses. They are still outside of his residences right now. You can tweet him directly, demanding he check out these things. So please go to antitrustsummer.com.
And then where can people follow you if they don't already? I'm sure all our audience already follows you, but just in case.
Well, you can follow me on Twitter at Ron Placone and Instagram. I'm Ron Placone on all the social media, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. I'm just Ron Placone. YouTube, Ron Placone. I'm most active on Twitter, but I stream my show, Get Your News On with Ron, on Twitter and YouTube and Rockfin. And you can go to ronplacone.com. Unfortunately, I had to postpone my Iceland shows to next year, but I do still have some dates in the Northwest with Graham Elwood. July 28th will be in Portland, July 29th, Seattle, July 30th, Vancouver, British Columbia, baby. So you can get tickets for those shows at ronplacone.com. And I can't wait to see you guys out on the road. I got sick. I got COVID. But I'm getting better on the road to recovery. So I did have to postpone some shows, but I'm looking forward to getting out there to the Northwest. So I'll see you all very soon up there.
My favorite joke of yours that I steal all the time, by the way, is the one that's part of the next presidential candidate is going to be a hologram of Mussolini.
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you. I don't know if I still do that one. That was about Biden and Trump, so I think I had to retire that after the election.
No, you just need to revamp it because really I'll
revamp it for 24.
Right? I mean, like I really believe that at this point, if the Democratic Party does not change course, I think we're in trouble. The Roe v. Wade decision might be enough to propel them through the midterms. I think people are very angry about that. So even if there's, some crappy candidates, what have you, people are concerned about the court. So that might give them the boost that they weren't having. But Biden does not have good popularity ratings at all right now. And I think part and parcel to that is he's just, again, like every other Democrat, not pushing forth for progressive change. I mean, why is he refusing to overturn the filibuster? It's crazy to me that he's going to, die on that hill. It seems like he just is like, holding on to that.
Because I don't think he really, he is anti-choice himself. He is, it's like,
we could do a whole other show talking about Anita Hill and what his actions were with that. Listen, that's part of the problem when the Democrats send out these fundraising emails that they're sending out now.
And people are starting to get fed up. Have you noticed that? There are more people who are saying Nancy Pelosi got booed off stage at that. I think it was a DACA thing, I think, but she literally got booed off stage and she couldn't handle it. She just, you really saw her pure disdain for regular people. And that is the thing, and that's not unique to Nancy Pelosi. That's all these plutocrats in government. They're all like that. But Nancy Pelosi is like that especially. And some people are fooled by her because like, oh, she's up in San Francisco and blah, blah, blah. No, she is a right-wing oligarch. She is terrible. And she has pure disdain for regular people. And that was just made so apparent when she basically said, well, you guys don't want to talk. So and then she just pouted off. That is who these people are. They think that you are the peasant. You are the peasant to them. You are the less than to them. That's what you are to Nancy Pelosi, to Mitch McConnell. That's what you are to them. They don't give a shit. No, but Joe Biden doesn't give a shit. Why aren't they doing these things? Because they don't actually care. They don't actually care. They care about their gravy train. They care about the donor cash, and they care about keeping that system in place. That's why they don't want to expand the Supreme Court. They don't want to mess with the status quo. They don't want to get money out of politics. That's why they go after third parties harder than anything else. Go find out what they're doing to Matthew Hoh in North Carolina, the Green who made the ballot for Senate. They're throwing everything. They're throwing every wrench they can at that guy because he disrupts the apple cart.
Right. So, I mean, you know, Nancy Pelosi was just down in Texas, as everybody knows, campaigning for an anti-choice candidate. And then she's now turning around saying, like, give me money because we have to preserve Roe v. Wade. It's not working anymore, Nancy, because people see your actions. If you really believe that, you would have been, you know, down in Texas campaigning for Qualler. You would have supported Jessica. You know, another example is you've had all these years to codify Roe v. Wade. Obama said he was going to do that. That was at the top of his list. And then all of a sudden it disappeared. So, I mean, everybody can see quite clearly what the history is here, and they're fed up. They are tired of being told to just give them more money. And if they give them more money, things will change. Well, no, you've been given money time and time again for years now, and you guys keep doing the same shitty stuff. It's just crazy.
Well, that's why we need.
I think they're fed up.
People are fed up, and it's like we can't vote our way out of it. I'm not telling people not to vote or anything like that. I'm just saying we can't.
Not it alone. Voting's part of the solution, but it is not the entire solution.
And it's an over-amplified part. I mean, yeah, it is part of the solution. And by the way, the biggest area where voting is part of the solution is freaking locally. So, you know, I mean, if you don't turn up in your neighborhood, but you turn up for, midterms and presidential, that's fine. But you might want to switch that up. You might want to make sure you either show up for everything, or if you have to prioritize local above everything else.
Local and
that's
primary.
The way it should be.
We lose really great candidates, I think, during the primary, too, because people don't come out and vote in primaries. And a lot of the good candidates that could actually be involved in making change don't make it past their primaries. They don't have the financial backing to run the campaigns against the incumbents. We've had some examples of people breaking through, but it's a really hard battle. So, yeah, my thing is, like, if you're going to vote, like, you're going to pick something, make it the primaries, make it local elections. Those things matter than anything else.
Yeah. Well, and we need, I mean, I know that I call for a general strike all the freaking time, but it's because we need one. Like there's no, I mean, we have to just hit them where it hurts by just using the biggest tool we have at our disposal, which is our labor. If we shut it down and say we're done until these needs are met, I think that's the only way any kind of change is going to happen. And you look around the world, I mean, there's different countries that have pulled off some general strikes right now. And, they're seeing some positive effects because of it. Unfortunately, the way the United States is set up, it's very hard for us to do that here. Why? Well, because our healthcare is tied to our jobs.
Right.
Because people aren't given living wages. So I understand it's hard to tell people to go on strike when they're like a paycheck away from going under and not being able to put food on the table for their kids or not being able to get medicine they need. I get that. It really sucks. It's going to take a whole lot of mutual aid, but I don't see us having any other choice. I look around, I'm like, what choice do we have?
Right. No, it's going to take a lot of things. That was the world's longest sign off for you and I, by the way.
Yeah, sorry. I feel like we're just. No. I have COVID. I have an excuse. I'm still battling COVID, so I don't even. I actually thought the show had only been going on for 10 minutes. I didn't know we had done a full show. I thought that
Michelle.
we have done one story so far, I think.
Thank you, Ron, for joining me. It's a pleasure as always. I love that you are the comedy to my seriousness. So everybody have a great afternoon. Jordan will be back from vacation. Thanks for joining us today, and stay safe out there.